Okay. Hey. If one digs a pit in the private domain and opens it into a public domain, or if he digs in a public and opens it in a private domain, or if he digs in a private domain and opens it in another private domain, he is liable. If one digs a pit in a double domain, in a public domain, and a bull and a donkey falls in it and dies, he is liable. Whether one digs a pit, a trench, a cave, or a quadrangular pit or wedge-like ditches, he is liable. If so, why is the pit saved? To teach us that just as a pit is deep enough to cause death, being hand 10 bits apart, so is everything that is deep enough to bring about death, being 10 to fuck them. If they are less than 10 to fuck them deep, and a bull or donkey fell into it and died, he is exempt. If he is injured, he is liable. If a pit belongs to two partners and the first one passes by it and does not cover it, and the second one passes by and does not cover it, the second one is liable. If the first one covers it, the second one comes and finds it uncovered and does not cover it, the second one is liable. If he covers it properly or a bull or donkey falls into it and dies, he is exempt. If he does not cover it properly and or a bull or a donkey falls into it and dies, he is liable. If he fell forward because of the sound of digging, he is liable. Backward because of the sound of digging, he is exempt. An ox with a trapping falls into it and they break, or a donkey with the trappings and they tear, or is liable for the animal but exempt for the trappings. If a bull that was deaf, foolish, or young falls into it, he is liable. A deaf male or he is liable. A deaf male child or a female child or a male slave or a female slave, he is exempt. How do you tell if a bull is deaf?
You ask it a question and it doesn't respond. Okay, one more chazar there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Um, a bull and all other animals are alike in regards to falling into a pit, separation from Mount Sinai, the two tall pavements, returning a loss and unloading, muzzling, kalayim, and the Sabbath. If the same applies to wild beasts or fowl, whole, if so, why is the act of donkey stated? Because Scripture speaks of the unusual, of the usual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bava Aleph. Hakones tson ledir v'nal b'fanei karoi. Okay, so he took his sheep into the pen and locked it up as is appropriate. Okay, v'yatsa v'hizika, and it went out and it did damage. Okay, for this it's pater. Now, when we see that, we take a look back a couple of Mishnayos ago, and where is it? The Shoshan is coming for a bit, Mr. Um, yeah, here we go. On Dalad in Dalad Tes, we said that that even if it was locked up, Karaoi, Vayatza Vehizik, and it went out and it did damage, Echad Tam Echad Moed Chayav, according to Rabbi Meir. So so what's the difference with this Mishnah over here, where it says that if you locked it up and it went out and it did damage, now it's patur? So it seems like a stir between the two Mishnayos, which we resolve by saying the first one is talking about Nizke Keren, that if it went out and attacked another animal, then it's chayav after getting out. But if it's just Shane Veregel, there if he locked it up properly, then he's not chayav for any damages if it somehow managed to get out. Okay. Nifritza balayla. What happens if somebody broke in at night? Or shepitzu alistim. Sorry, if robbers broke in and left the place open, or else it just something happened. There was a big storm and part of the fence fell over. Okay, v'yatza v'hizika, and now the animals got out and the damage by Shane Veregel. Pater. However, if the robbers themselves actually physically took the animals out, and then the animals went out and got caused damage, then who's responsible? Are the burglars? They're the ones who took the animal out. If they just broke the fence, that's a grommer. So they can't be held liable for that other than the damage to the fence, but they can't be held liable for the damage that the animals did. Okay. Hinicha b'chama. What happens if he leaves the animals in the sun? Okay, so he locked them up in the pen, and it was a good it was a normal pen, but it was a hot sun. which is going to let them, the animals are going to start getting agitated in the sun, and they're going to start getting, a lot more agitated. Is good enough. They actually managed to break out of the enclosure, because that's probably what's going to happen if you leave an animal in the sun. Okay, or or he left him in the care of somebody who's not mentally competent, doesn't have the das to look after them. But Yatsa Zika, and now it got out and did damage. Now he's chayev, because that was a rash tanot. It was negligence that he left that he left them in the sun or in the care of somebody who's not competent. Masar leroeh, if he handed it over to a shepherd. Nichnas haroeh tachtav. Now we actually already learned that before. There was another Mishnah where we said if somebody else took it over. So why is this Mishnah coming to teach it again? Is to give this dumb situation of where you have a professional shepherd and you hand it over to him. It's implicit that he is allowed to hand it over to his apprentices. So you don't, so that they also now become liable in his place, and that's considered just an accepted condition of business, that when you hand it over to a professional shepherd, he's allowed to hand it over to his apprentices. Okay, nafla lagina v'nenes. Now, what happens if an animal was walking in a place where it was allowed to walk, and there's a bit of a landslide, the animal rolled down the hill and wound up in a garden, and said, "Oh, now that I'm in a garden, these are some yummy vegetables over here." So the animal goes and starts eating the vegetables in the garden. Okay, the damage mishalemes mashenenes. He only has to pay for what the animal benefited. Okay, now if it went and was eating all these beautiful flowers and vegetables, human food, all that the owner has benefited is the fact that he didn't have to eat it to give it cheap animal fodder. So he has to pay back the owner how much he benefited by not having to feed the animal. However, if the animal went intentionally through a normal walking route, that's Mishalemis Masha Hizika. Now he has to pay the full damage of if it ate turnips, he must pay for turnips. Ketzad Mishalemis Masha Hizika. How do you estimate how much damage was done? So actually, he doesn't have to pay for the value of the produce that he ate, but rather what you do is shamin base se'ah be'osa sadeh. Take a look at if you had an area of a base se'ah, which is a fairly large area in that same field. Kama haysayafe, how much would it be worth with all the plants intact? The kama hi yafa, and how much is it worth now that the animal has gone and eaten a little corner of it? So now you got that looks like a much smaller difference in terms of the damage. You're looking at the damage to the field overall, not in terms of the how much was the produce worth that it ate. So it's a smaller amount. Rabbi Shimon makes a distinction though. He says, Achla peros gemurim, if the animal ate fruit that was already ripe. So he considers it as if it's already picked. And now it's no longer considered as if it's attached to the tree, and now you're doing damage to the field. You're doing damage to the actual produce. Mishalemes peros gemurim. Now you must pay for the actual produce that the animal ate. Im sa'ah sa'ah, im sa'ah, im sa'ah, and now you pay the market value of the produce. Yeah. But of course, if it's unripe, then all you can do is you can do the previous calculation that the Tanna Kama said. Okay.
Right.
Mishnah Gimel, Hamagdish besuch sadeh shel chavero shelo birshos. This concept again we've heard before, that if somebody put his stuff in somebody else's field without permission, then not only is he not liable, and his stuff got damaged, that not only is the balabais not liable, but if the thing did damage while it was there, then he's going to have to pay the balabais. Okay, so he put his haystack in the field of his friend without permission. And the balasadeh's animal went and ate it. He's patur. And if it had damage done to it, it slipped on it or whatever, bala gedish chayav. But however, if he did it with permission, then the Bala Sadeh is chayav. So the Tana over here is assuming that once you're giving permission to put something in there, you're also accepting shmira, which may be some Tanaim will dispute. Okay, let's do some chazaras. I'm going into the office today and I'm getting a ride, so I might have to leave about 5 past.
Okay. We're in Gimel Hey,
Dalad.
Dalit.
Yeah, Gimel Dalad.
Okay. Two potters were walking one after the other, and the first one stumbled and fell, and so the second one stumbled over the first one. The first one is liable, but the injuries of the second one. If one came with his jug, and another crate came with his beam, and when this one's jug broke, that one's beam is exempt. Since this one has the right to walk, and this one has the right to walk. The owner of the beam was first, and the owner of the jug second. The jug broke in the beam, and the owner of the beam is exempt. But if the owner of the beam stopped, he is liable. If, however, he says to the owner of the jug, "Stop," he is exempt. If the owner of the jug was first and the owner of the beam second, and the jug broke on the beam, he is liable. But if the owner of the jug stopped, he is exempt. If, however, he said to the owner of the beam, "Stop," he is liable. The same applies if one comes with a candle and when this one with flax. Two were going to opposing domain. One was running and one was walking. Well, both were running and they injured one another. Both are exempt. Okay. Do it. Right? Okay.
Yeah,
If one child,
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
I thought. Okay. And we'll get to. Okay. Tet, above Tet, above of Zion. If one said to two persons, give or get to my wife, or to the three, write a get and give it to my wife, they shall write and give it. If he said to three, give a get to my wife, they may tell others to write it because he has designated them as a court. These are the words of Rameya Rechana of Onon Bartha's law from prison. I have a decision concerning one who says to three, give it a get to my wife, that they may tell others to write it because he's designated them as a court. Said Rabbi Yossi, we said to the messenger, we also have a tradition that even if the said to the great court in Jerusalem, give a get and my wife, they must learn and write and give it. And if he said to 10, write a gift for my wife, one writes and two signs. If he says, all of you write, one writes and they all sign. Therefore, if one of them died, the get is null. One who is seized by delirium and said, write a gift for my wife, and did not say anything. If he said, write a gift for my wife, and was seized by the delirium, and then he said, it did not write it, his latter words are worthless. The word one became mute, and they said to him, we shall you write a gift for your wife, and he said nodded with his head. They tested him 3 times. If you said no for no and yes for a yes, they may not write. They may write and may give it. If they said to him, "Shall we write a get to your wife?" and he said to them, "Write," and he said, he told the scribe, and he wrote, and he witnesses, and they signed. Although they wrote it, signed it, and gave it to him, and in turn he gave it to her. That void is void unless he says to the scribe, "Write," and to the witnesses, "Sign." If a man said, "This is your get if I die," "This is your get if I die from the illness of mine,"
Oh,
or
no,
"This is your
that's it. That's we've done 3. Okay, Subas. Yud Gimel Dalad.
If one claims vessels of oils from another and he admits to the these vessels, Admon said since he has admitted to part of the claim, he must swear. The sages, however, say this is not an admission of the same kind as the claim that Grandma Gamil said, I approve of Admon's view. If one stipulated to give money to his son-in-law and he stipulated reneg me first, is that right? Right. And he sort of reneg. He should sit until her hair turns white. Admin says she can say, had I stipulated for myself, I would sit until my hair turns white. Now that my father stipulated for me, what can I do? Either marry me or divorce me, said Rabbi Gamil. I approve of Admin's view. If one consists the ownership of a field and he signed it onto a witness, Admin says he can say the second one is amenable to me, the first one is more powerful than he. The sages, however, say he has lost his right. If he made a boundary mark for another, he lost his right.
Okay.
Everything. Zion pet. What is the quantity? If there are numerous, what food for 2 meals for all of them? When they are few, the volume of a dried fig is in the case of transferring on the Sabbath for each and every one. Rabbi Yossi said, to what do these words apply? To the installation of the Erev, but not for the remnants of the Erev of any amount. For they only required an Erev in courtyards not to let the children forget. And any food may be used to make an Arab of shituf, except water and salt. Those are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says, a man loaf is loaf of, as an Arab, even if it's baked from a saw, but it's broken, it may not be used for an Arab.
Okay.
Roll over forth Isser, which says whole, may be
Hold on,
used with
we're
Erev.
we're in Nida now. Did you find your Maseches Nida?
We need to go. Okay, I finished that
Yeah.
one. Okay, need. Okay,
There were some short ones.
yeah. Okay. Let me see. Okay, we have Olive Gimel.
Yeah.
Elliot says there are four women whose time suffice with them: a virgin, a pregnant woman, a nursing woman, and an old woman. Rabbi Shua says, I've heard this law only with regard to a virgin. However, the law is like Rabbi Eliezer. What is meant by a virgin? A girl who has not been discharged blood in her life, even if she is married. Regarding a pregnant woman, one, her time suffices for her only from when her fetus becomes notable. Regarding a nursing woman, the time nurse suffices for her until she weans a child. If she gave her child to a wet nurse, or she weaned him or died, where Meir says she conveys truma retroactively the 24 hours, but they can come and say her time suffices for her. What is meant by an old woman? Any woman for whom 3 periods have passed by her old age. Rabbi Eliezer says any woman for whom 3 periods have passed, the time suffices for her. If Eli Yossi says a pregnant woman and a nursing woman for whom 3 periods have passed, the time suffices for them.
Okay.
We're
And
on to
Chulin.
Chulin. Yeah, Chulin. Read Gimel. If a firstborn animal became mingled with 100 in the case that 100 people slaughter them all, we exempt them all. If one person slaughters them all, we exempt one for him. If one slaughters for a Kohen or for a Gentile, he's exempt from the gifts. Or if one makes a partnership with them, he makes the mark of meat. But if he says except for the gifts, he is exempt for the gifts. If he said sell me the entrails of a cow and they contain the gifts, he must give them to the Kohen, but he does not deduct them from the price. If he brought them from his weight, he must give them to the Kohen and he deducts them by the piece. Deducts them for the price. If one converted the cow, it was daughter so before it was converted, he is exempt. If it was slaughtered after he converted, he is obligated. If it is uncertain, he is exempt because the burden of proof is on the one who seeks to exact a payment from him. A payment from him from the other, which is the foreleg, which is the carpus of the whole debate, and that is the one of the nazir, and it's corresponding to that, and the hind leg is the thigh. The Rehuda said the thigh is from the heel joint to the knee joint, which is the jaw from the joint of the jaw until the opening of the trachea. And the mitzvah of giving the first of fleece applies both in the land and outside the land, when the temple exists and when the temple does not exist, to unconsecrated animals, but not to consecrated ones. The stringency of the law is the foreleg, the jaws, and the more over the law of the first, and the first of the fleece is that the law of the first foreleg, the jaw, and the jaw applies to the cattle and its flocks, to many and to few, whereas the law of the first applied to fleece applies only to sheep, and it applies only to many.
Okay, and we're
Okay.
done. And I'm gonna go.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, have a
Bye.
wonderful day.
Do that.